As you've observed, Commissioner Allender is unable to attend today, so you're stuck with me. I'll do my best. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Commissioner Hadaway, could you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to acknowledge the attendance of some of our ambassadors this morning, Mike Atrode, Dennis Hepburn, and Bob Sox. Thank you, guys. And we have Ambassador Emeritus Jim Handley and Mac McLeod. Let's see, may I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks very much.
Mr. Chairman, since the budget is at 9:15 time certain, I can go forward with my presentation rather than sit here for 10 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Good morning. Welcome back after a summer recess. Okay, we'll jump right into it. Cruise update through July. We've had 674 calls. We've had 3.2 multi-day passengers. July was an exceptionally strong month. I'll show that on a subsequent slide, but I can say that our numbers have really ticked up in the number of passengers that are flowing through the port. So it's been a good year, or a good month, and it was a celebratory month because it was the final 12th month after of cruise restarting. We started last year, as you recall, on July 31st with the Mardi Gras. We also had the Norwegian Getaway this summer. I mentioned that in June that it was coming, and the vessel's been here since the last week of June, doing 7-day sailings. She'll be with us until early December. The Disney Wish arrived right after our last meeting. We had the celebration there, and the ship went into full-time passenger service on July 14th. They had some tentative sailings before that with travel agents and employees, etc., and she's now part of our regular rotation. And the Norwegian Joy is making its first port of call here at Port Canaveral for provisioning today. The vessel's here today, and we'll be doing a plaque and key ceremony for her this afternoon. This is just a quick graph to give everyone an idea how strong July was. We had 6 consecutive weeks with over 100,000 passenger turns per week, and we actually had 1 week, 2 weeks ago, was 120.3 thousand passengers move through this port in a week. So that's a new record for us, and it was really it's a factor of the bigger ships and more ships, and starting to pay off in the passenger counts. On the cargo side, we had 458 calls, 10 million in revenue, cargo tonnage 5.4 million tons. For this year, for the cargo side, we've already passed our budgeted number, and Mike can talk about all that later, but cargo's been strong through the year and continues to be strong through the rest of the balance of the year through September. We had the Donald M. James discharge 55,000 tons of granite for Brightline project, and we have one to two more vessels coming with more granite. Our Foreign Trade Zone 136 operating agreement with the City of Melbourne Airport Authority is on the agenda for approval today. As you may recall, TUI is now flying daily service in from the UK to the Melbourne Orlando Airport, and as part of that arrangement, they are getting the fuel from Seaport Canaveral, and it arrives duty-free. In other words, they don't pay customs duty on it. If it comes in from foreign and goes immediately out on an international aircraft, there's some savings for the operator. So that's been turned on, and that's going to help TUI save some money, and it gives us more business flowing through Port Canaveral. We're also exhibiting in the upcoming Break Bulk Americas. That's September 27th to 29th in Houston, Texas. We haven't been in 3 years now, so it's good to get back into that mode. And that's a break bulk conference, which is the predominant part of the cargo we move through Port Canaveral, and several of our tenants will be at that event as well, partners. On the communication side, we've been launching the safety zones on our communication so that people know what the safety zones are during launches. We're collaborating very closely with the Coast Guard on that, and over 112,000 reach. Again, Steve can explain that if anyone has any questions. Social media engagement, we had another busy 6-day weekend, red snapper and fishing tournament. It's been crazy, and our social media has been very active with all of the activity on our ships and snapper and so forth this season. It's been quite a interesting summer, busy summer. Don't know if any of you follow AMC's Better Call Saul show, but for those of you that don't, season 6, episode 12, which is the second to last episode, it aired last week, and we were featured in the opening scene. We weren't recognized as Port Canaveral, we were recognized as Titusville, but we'll take it at this point. That's the scene itself, and they're driving to a warehouse in Titusville, but just happened to go by Exploration Tower on the way.
Your phone's ringing.
It'll only take a second. We didn't get a big cameo, just a small one. I was actually watching the show and had no idea that it was on, and all of a sudden I'm seeing a picture of the port on TV, and I'm thinking, how'd that happen? So there you go. On the government relations side, on the federal update, ports and access and waterway safety assessment for Port Canaveral is kicked off in June. The next meeting will be 7 and 8 of September. We're coordinating with the Coast Guard for stakeholder input, and it's the Coast Guard Navigation Center is directing this from Washington. This workshop is very important for anyone that does business in the port. What we're trying to do is establish permanent or semi-permanent safety zones for rocket launches that will make sure that all of our port partners, from recreational boaters to commercial fishermen to Victory Casino to our cruise lines and cargo carriers, can all get in and out of the port safely without disrupting the space industry that's growing so quickly right now. Also had a recent meeting last week. Janet Petro came into the office, and we had a nice meeting and talked about some of our common issues, and it was a great session, and talked about the Artemis launch coming up. We're also coordinating with their headquarters for congressional guests that will be here for the Artemis launch too. So there's quite a bit going on with NASA around this launch coming up. There's another item I want to highlight, and I think we might have some copies of this at the door, but the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration controls what's known as the right whale area of I don't know the exact word, but it's a zone where the whales congregate off the coast of the United States. And they've just proposed a new rulemaking, and the current zone is just to the south of Georgia, all the way up into Maine, and actually gets up into the Canadian waters. And the concept is vessels passing through this zone during certain times of the season will slow down to 10 knots. And the concept is that the slower ships aren't going to hit and kill the whales, and the whales are an endangered species. So this has been in the East Coast for many years, and now they want to modify it. And the modifications are going to extend the zone further south, south of Port Canaveral, so we'll now be in the zone. And the bigger modification, in my view, and this bill that they're proposing, or this rule that they're proposing, is to change the length from 65 foot and over to 35 foot and over, which will create concerns for our inland navigation and maneuverability. The offshore fishermen that have the fast boats that head out to the tuna grounds are going to have to go through a 10-knot zone on the way out, and it's going to impact a lot of people. So I would urge anyone that's got an interest in offshore Port Canaveral to read this rule proposal. Comments are due by September 30th, and I really think it's important that everybody understands what the impact is going to be, because it's quite significant. For us, it'll run from November to April, that 10-knot zone off the coast. So,
do our lobbyists do anything with NOAA? I mean, I don't know. I know that they are up in Washington, and I know the current administration is probably not very friendly to really any type of business, but can you?
We can reach in there, but this is a standard process. What they'll do is they'll collect all of the comments and then they'll make a final rule. If it's like the CDC, they collected the comments and then did what they wanted anyway. So I'm not sure what NOAA's going to do on this one, but there's a lot of pressure behind them to protect the whales.
Well, obviously we all want whales to live, but it is affecting our business. And NOAA is the same organization that says that the red snapper's endangered as well. So, bigger government is not better government. So if we could have our lobbyists look at NOAA and how we could work on NOAA, I think that would benefit the fishermen. It would benefit the shipping, cargo, everything.
We'll be submitting comments. Some of the issues that we have is when ships come up the channel, they sometimes have to exceed 10 knots in order to maintain safe steerage way, making the turn into the harbor. So it's issues all around. And Ben Borghi was, I thought I saw him earlier. There he is. Can comment further on that. You know any more, Ben, than I just explained? Anything else you'd like to add?
It will have a dramatic impact.
Yeah, just come on up because you've been involved a little bit more than I have as of late. You got a mic?
It will have a dramatic impact on the operations on the maritime side. One of the reasons that the outside channel is only 400 feet wide and the inside channel is 500 feet wide is because, as John mentioned, when we're outside in the channel, we can transit at a higher speed, which we need to do to maintain a safe distance inside that narrow channel. So as a result of having to slow down these cruise ships, not only does that add a extra level of danger to the operation, but it also means that this 10 knot speed limit is going to apply to our pilot boats. And if you have a ship that's going 10 knots and a pilot boat that's going 10 knots, you can't do the transfer. So what does that mean? That means we're going to have to spread out these ships even further. That means we will not be able to bring in 4 cruise ships in 1 hour. We'll have to spread them out. That means we'll be boarding these cruise ships 8 and 9 a.m. in the morning. This is a big, big problem for us operationally.
Thanks, Ben. So I encourage anyone that does any business here in the port to get wise with this rule and submit comments personally. Go ahead, please, Commissioner.
Yeah, and again, I mean, this goes all the way in the channel. I mean, all the way up inside the.
It runs along the coast. It doesn't come into the channel, but the channel would be part of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The entire shipping channel is covered under the whale zone.
Okay, up until the breakwater, or whatever. Okay.
The entire shipping channel, outside the breakwater.
Right. Okay.
It goes out about 5 nautical miles.
5 miles offshore. So it's narrow here. It's much wider up the coast. So it's not just us that are impacted. Every port and recreational facility on the east coast of the United States is affected. And as I say, dropping the boat length from 65 foot to 35 affects a lot more people.
That's huge. Yeah, I understand.
Have
Yes, ma'am.
we talked to other ports that this is going to affect? Also, have we talked to commercial fishing or?
We talked to
some of
commercial fishing here at the port already. They don't have as big an issue because their boats go slower. But, it's the big ships that are an issue. It's the recreational fishermen that's an issue. Anybody that normally goes fast through that zone, a ferry or anything else, not in our port, but in other ports, it's going to affect them as well.
But to answer your question, I mean, like Jacksonville, this has been an issue forever up there. I mean, for decades, this has been an issue, and now it's only going to be worse.
It gets exponential when you drop the vessel size to 35.
Right.
I guess what I was getting at is we've got a short runway here before the 30th, but is there a way we could do a resolution as a board and or share drafts of that with other port authorities and have a unified message for at least for some flexibility, for safety, for the impact.
We could look at that.
I love whales. That I don't want to do anything to hurt the whales, but if we can, still have safe operations.
There's a balance between save the whales and practicality of other operations. So we can do that. This rulemaking just came out in the last week, so we're still coming to grips with it. But we'll be making a lot more inquiries, and there'll be a lot of trade associations, et cetera, that pile on this one because this is a significant change.
And it sounds like Ben is very familiar with it, and they have lobbyists, so we definitely need to work close with the pilots.
Yeah.
It's like they're making the entire Atlantic Ocean a manatee zone. Yeah.
It's a good way to put it.
Well, I'd love to see us have an opinion collectively as a board. I don't- If
We'll get something together and we'll definitely circulate it. And we've got one more meeting before comments are due. So if we have a resolution or whatever we decide to do, we'll have time to do it. So I just want to make you aware of it. And as you're out with constituents and just make sure everybody that touches the port or Sebastian Inlet or anywhere else, that they know that this is out there and that the general public is going to be affected. It's not just big ships. The general public's going to be affected if they've got a 35-foot boat. Okay? On the state side, a couple things here. We've got some grants that have been announced for local support grant program funding, and we've put 2 projects forward. We've discussed some of the Jetty Park improvements out there for the park itself, and Representative Fine has sponsored us to submit for one of these grants. And then we're also looking at a Canaveral Fire Rescue Aerial Tower ladder truck replacement that needs to be done, and Representative Plankton from Seminole County sponsored us on this particular project. There's been 1,000 projects submitted statewide. We don't know how well we'll do on this, but we've got 2 sponsors, and hopefully we end up with one of the 2 grants. We also have Department of Environmental Protection Resiliency Grant Program. It's a technical briefing with the program manager, and we're reviewing possible projects. We're being called to go through a port vulnerability assessment for sea level rise, et cetera. So that's all on our agenda right now as well. And on the legislative outreach, we had a port briefing and tour for Senator Jason Broder. District 9, parts of Seminole and Orange counties, was in town last Friday, and always good to have as many supporters of the port as we can. So it was great to give a tour to him last week. In Jetty Park, the campground occupancy is at 60% right now. That's normal for this time of year. The beach remains busy, running about 300 cars a day. The park is open for all 34 launches this year, which is great. And we're working to standardize food truck procedure at the port. As you may recall, we have food trucks out there now on busy days, and that seems to work well, better than the permanent restaurant out there that couldn't survive easily with the peaks and valleys of the park days, you know, when they're crowded or not crowded. So this seems to work well with the food truck, and we've been getting good feedback on it anyway. On the environmental side, we got Keep Brevard Beautiful Summer Series cleanup July 23rd, 75 volunteers along State Road 528, and they pulled out 3,300 pounds of litter and debris. We've got Green Marine certification recertified in 2021 for the 2021 reporting year, and Bob Musser was there with his lightning hat to receive the award up in Montreal. It marks 7 years I got a problem with P's today for some reason. Marks 7 years participation in the voluntary program, Advocates for Continual Environmental Improvements. So that's great. Thanks, Bob. Public safety update, we hosted the AWR 144, which is the Port and Vessel Security Training for Public Safety and Maritime Personnel for Port Partners. I don't know, we would call it AWR 44 because of that long name. We had 20 participants who was here in the commission room. This was last week. We're also hosting Coast Guard Ports and Waterways Safety Assessment, the PASA that I mentioned earlier, on September 7th and 8th. And staff is working to develop a Coast Guard mass rescue tabletop exercise, and we have the Artemis launch planning coming up. That's my report, or actually, I'm going to let Peter Bergeron come up and do what we're going to do for Artemis, because this is going to be a major event. I want Peter just to give you a high-level overview of what we're planning.
Thanks, John. Commissioners, good morning. The Artemis 1 launch, the uncrewed test flight for NASA's Artemis program, is scheduled for 29 August at 08:33. It's a 2-hour flight window. The launch is expected to draw a crowd of 100,000 plus visitors to our surrounding communities and roadways. In addition, it's also a 5-ship day for us. We'll have the Disney Wish, Carnival Freedom, Carnival Liberty, Mariner of the Seas, and Independence of the Seas. So on the same day, we'll have to embark and debark approximately 40,000 passengers. So to do that, it's going to take an all-hands effort of part of our security partners and the entire CPA staff. Other events in the port at the same time, there's going to be a VIP reception in CT3 the day before on the 28th from 1600 to 1900. And on the day of the launch, there'll be a Lockheed Martin viewing party on the ET lawn with 3,000 guests. So the port is going to be open for operations. Parking will be for cruise ops and special events only. We'll coordinate our social media outreach with our communications team, and we're communicating with the cruise lines to communicate with their passengers on their arrival and what their expectations are. There'll be no parking or viewing along State Road 401 or George King. Jetty Park will open at 0500 until it reaches capacity. We'll have a deputy at the entrance gate to enforce that. We'll also have a deputy at the boat ramp to ensure it's boat ramp parking only for people with boats. Cove parking will be open for the merchants and the patrons. We're going to pre-stage our assets in the port. The MIMOC will be in the ET parking lot to serve as our command center. We'll have staff both on the north and south side of the port to ensure a orderly movement of traffic. We're actually going to control every intersection. We'll have a deputy within the port and Cape Canaveral City. The deputies can take positive control of the intersection if they deem it's necessary, and will operate under the county's extended green light in order to flush the traffic out of the port. They just extend the time for the green lights in the intersections. CFR will have roving patrols port-wide with EMTs. We'll have an extra ambulance in the port, and lifeguards will arrive early for Jetty Park. We're going to be requested from FDOT a temporary orange fencing along 528, because one of the problems we have is the crossover of the medians with people when they park and want to exit. And we're going to station road rangers and deputies along that median to ensure traffic is not impeded. And BCSO will also patrol from the port all the way to Route 1 to keep 528 open. Brevard EOC will share our port traffic plans, and they'll activate and monitor the traffic program. Coast Guard has requested no bridge openings for the 401 bridge. BCSO detail will arrive early. Everybody will be here by 0400, so we can make sure we can make it into the port. And we already went over the other stuff. Marine events, the fire boats will be fully manned and in the water. BCSO's patrol boats will also be in the water. And we'll put out our traffic management plan in terms of directions with social media. We'll have it out next week. That's it, pending any of your questions.
Sounds like you've put a lot of work into that, Peter. Have fun with it.
Yeah, not just me, sir. We have a lot of help on that. Brevard County Sheriff's Office and CFR and Coast Guard, CBP, Brevard County Emergency Operations Center, and FDOT. So it's been an all-hands effort. Yes, sir.
Outstanding.
This may be a finance question, but what is our expense just managing all of this?
So estimated it'll probably cost us $15,000 for the event in order for staffing of detailed deputies and fire.
And that's per day if it doesn't go the first time.
Correct. If it doesn't go on the, we're paying for it if it goes or not, if we man it on the 29th.
Right.
Some of it, yes. Some of it will pay for this, yes.
What was that?
Some of the event providers, they'll pay the, Lockheed Martin will pay for the deputies to support their event, and CFR. Same thing with the reception to the night. The other stuff, all the traffic control and all that stuff, that's on us.
Thank you.
And if the launch doesn't go off on that Monday, the next day, I believe, is Wednesday, where we'll have no ships. So that would be a much smoother operation than having our 40,000 guests transferring. So we'll see how it goes. But we're ready for the 5-ship launch. So that's the point. Wanted everybody to be aware, and there'll be more communication coming out in the nearest future as we get closer to the date. Question?
John, I'd like to make a comment on that. This was a great segue because I appreciate the the comprehensive and unified approach to this event. But I'd like to make a request, I guess, maybe for next meeting. Given all the huge increase that we've had in all the passengers and all the transportation and all the stressors that it puts on the whole region. Last Saturday we had a real cluster, a real problem, and that it was a safety issue, and it was really a health issue for those people that got stuck. And I guess the question, the issue would be, you know, what are we doing about that sort of thing? You know, it's not just us, of course, it's everybody. It's the cruise lines, it's everybody else involved in those hiccups where we have real problems. So I would ask that, you know, we maybe next meeting have some sort of on the positive side, okay, we've got all these transportation challenges, all these safety challenges, all these, you know, parking, all this sort of stuff. What are we doing about it? How's it going? You know, an update sort of thing.
Just to your point, the after the incident last weekend, the public safety team here has had a hot wash or after action review, whatever you want to call it, and I've not heard the results of that yet. But the idea is, you know, what went well, what didn't go so well, what can we do better next time, and we'll be able to report on that next month. But we take these things very seriously, and you got a good team on the public safety side, and unlike some other ports that I'm aware of, our team works very well together, and it's a real plus for this area and this port.
And you know, I know that and appreciate that. Again, though, I'm just hearing the challenges we're having, whether it's transportation or whatever, in this area because of this. It's expected, and it's a good thing, but we've also, you know, how are we dealing with it? So,
The incident last weekend was totally out of our control, and it was all contained on the ship. And just to summarize it, the ships normally get a zero count on passenger debark around 10:30 in the morning, and once all the passengers are off, then the new ones can come on. There were a couple of incidents on the ship that held the ship in place where CBP didn't get the zero count until 1 in the afternoon. So meanwhile, everybody's showing up to board the ship, and you can't go into the terminal until the zero count has been given. So that was what was the incident last week. And unfortunately, it was, you know, 100 degrees out in the sun, and people were ready to get on the ship. We need to know what to do next time. Our team got water out to the people and started handing out water bottles and all. So it's something that we really need to be prepared for that type of a thing. It's as we get larger and more volume of people moving in and out of this port, it becomes a lot more sensitive to the slightest hiccup.
yeah,
So
that's the point.
that's the point.
But it seems like the cruise lines in that particular situation, which you've told me about, it seems like the cruise lines should have something like the airlines have, where they text you and say, by the way,
I
We've
don't
got
know
some
that they
issues.
don't. They may have that, but you got people that have come in from airplanes or whatever, or
Yeah.
gotten to the port, they're here. They normally are allowed to get on the ship by, 10:30 in the morning, and they can start getting on board. They're here ready to go, and they're waiting 2.5 hours in the hot sun. And that was not due to the cruise line's fault, or, it was an incident, multiple incidents, I should say, on the ship itself that tied everything up that long. So CBP, there's a lesson there with CBP and BCSO and the way the investigations were conducted, and maybe there's a better way to do that next time, but that's what the hot wash is all about, and we'll get the feedback on that later.
In the future, they'll be able to go to the aquarium
Yeah, in the future.
in the future.
Okay, and that's my report for today. If you have any questions, I'm available. All right, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Could you, I think your presentation is going to be a little different than customary. If you just give the audience a sort of a heads up on how it's
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. So it'll be two presentations today. The first one will be the budget, operating budget, capital budget, tariff modifications, and foreign trade zone modifications. And then we'll go next. I'll stand up here and we'll remain standing and give the presentation on the June financials.
Thank you.
So as is our budget process, we come before the board twice. We present it initially in August, take any questions, we don't request approval, and then we come back at the September board meeting and we ask for approval for those four items: the operating budget, capital budget, tariff, and foreign trade zone. So as our budget, we advertise the numbers in the paper. It's a collaborative process. It takes a couple of months, and with all our different departments contributing in. Each one of the board members has been individually presented in detail. So this budget, Commissioner Justice will not go into the detail that you received on Monday. So it'll be a more condensed version, but if it's too condensed and there are questions, please stop me and we'll go over that. So The first thing we want to do is, how did we do in FY '22? How are we projecting that we're going to come in the rest of the year? And that forms a basis for our budget for FY '23. We budgeted operating revenues of $109 million. We're coming in at $122 million. We're $13 million above. $10 million of that is cruise, $2.5 million is cargo, and the balance is recreation and real estate. On our non-operating revenues, we're in the second year of that $72 million that we're receiving. We received $15 million in fiscal year '21. In fiscal year '22, we're receiving approximately $38 million, and then we're budgeting for the final remaining $18 million in FY '23. So that's reflected in this year's numbers. Operating expenses, all in, we budgeted $97.4 million, and we're coming in slightly below that. That's from a complete operating budget standpoint. Our revenues, what are we budgeting? Almost $154 million. We'll be discussing that. Our operating expenses are $108 million, so that's an increase year over year. Operating income is $45 million. When you include the non-operating revenues of $20 million, $18 million of those non-operating revenues are those ARPA funds, and $2 million is interest income, investment income. Non-operating expenses, when you deduct that, that's the interest on our debt, that's $12 million. That produces an income before capital contributions of $53 million. Capital contributions are the grant funds that we've received from the federal and state government for capital projects. That's predominantly North Cargo Berth 3, so that's the $23 million. And that, when you add those grant funds to recapitalize our infrastructure of $23 million, that produces a change in net position of $76 million, or an increase in your retained earnings of $76 million. Let's dive into revenues. At $154 million, the three segments that make this up. Cruise is $124 million, cargo at $18 million, and almost $11 million are the remaining three segments of business: leases, recreation, and our miscellaneous revenues. Let's get into cruises here. And we have $124.5 million. That's $30 million increase year over year. That's due to, of those 909 calls, 810 home ported ships. That's 112 additional calls. You can see the calls that are coming in with Royal Caribbean, Royal, Carnival, all continue to have 3 year-round and 1 seasonal service for each one of those. Disney continues on with their 2 year-round services. MSC continues with their 1 year-round. Norwegian has 3 seasonal, so that is an increase year over year, and you'll be seeing that in the December timeframe. I will highlight Marella is a new service that'll be starting, 22 calls starting in April, ending in September, weekly service. The Discovery is the name of that vessel, and it's a service that's affiliated with TUI, so out of the United Kingdom. So we're excited about that service coming on. So now going to cargo, that's at 18.6 million, represented by 6.6 million in tons. We're budgeting a slight increase in tonnage. It's the main products that we always have here. It's fuel, it's lumber, slag, limestone, granite, those items that support the construction industry. It's also juice, frozen food, salt, fertilizer. That $18 million, there's 2 items that make it up. It's the port fees that are reflected in our tariff, like wharfage and dockage and line handling. And then the balance is the rent that those tenants pay, and that's over $4 million. You make those 2 together. And cargo, as a component of our business, represents over $18 million. So it's an important segment of our business. The last 3 items. Leases, we budgeted for a slight increase there, and that's coincidentally, it's also $4.5 million. So leases, tenants, our people on the cove that pay us not related to cargo, it's at $4.5 million. Recreation, slight increase, $4.2 million. Miscellaneous is consistent with last year's numbers as well. A little slight increase in our commercial vehicle fees, and that's tied to the increase in the cruise business. It's about a $500,000 increase year over year. Now, moving over to the expense side of the house. Nope, too much. We're budgeting $108 million all in. That's The largest component is our people, our workforce. That's 230 full-time equivalents. That's expressed as FTE, so 230 staff members. We have placeholders in there for an increase in all those components that you see. And this is Commissioner Justice, you've been asking me for several months after when every time the federal government announces a new CPI index and it's going up by 8.6% one month and then it's 9.1 and this last month it's been 8.5%. You ask me, at this podium here, Mike, are you forecasting and what are you, how are you accounting for that? That's what this budget reflects. There's an increase in service contracts, maintenance, all our custodial. Bill will be bringing up this month and next month with Brevard Achievement Center. We have to pay more to keep, so they can keep their personnel here and they can keep our facilities clean. We have increases in insurance. That was a 15% increase that we incurred on June 1st with our Lloyd's of London syndicate that insures all our property. We have over $900 million worth of coverage. Utilities increase, fuel increase, it's across the board. So just like in our capital budget, you're seeing that we're getting back to our pre-pandemic levels that we had in FY20 from an operating and a capital, from a capital perspective. So there's increases in here for just not, in addition to the level of service that we're increasing year over year, and also those rate increases that we feel like our suppliers are going to be charging us. Now going to the capital budget, it's $76 million. There's $38 million of projects that the board has either awarded previously, they're going to award this month or next month. We need to carry those forward and complete those projects on. There's $38 million in new projects as well. The FY22 carry forward projects are cargo related. North Cargo Berth 3, that project will finish up in April. That's $18 million. South Cargo Pier 1 and 2, that's in this year's budget. We plan on coming to the board in September for you to award that. That will roll over to next fiscal year as well. We have the mobile harbor crane that's on this meeting's agenda for your approval. And that'll take about 14 months to complete that, so we need to roll that forward. And Parks and Recreation, the aquarium project. So we budgeted funds, $3.5 million. We've spent a little bit of that money, but we need to roll that money over to next year as well. So if you look at it at a top-down approach here on all our segments of business, I broke it down into these categories. So it's $76 million worth of projects here. And these projects go to allow us to generate that $154 million in revenue. So you can see here, infrastructure, maintenance dredging, that's alongside our berths to make sure they're at the advertised depths that we put in our tariff, but there's about $4.5 million there. That benefits everybody. That benefits cargo and cruise. George King Boulevard paving, same thing. So that's just repaving that. 401 flyover the wastewater. We got some tank replacements in there. That those projects support all our segments of business. Specifically for cruise, almost $15 million. A lot of the deferred replacement that we have not been doing the last 2 years, we're doing in this year's budget. Passenger boarding bridges, canopy replacements at Cruise Terminal 10, parking, air conditioning replacement, elevator, escalator, it's across the board. And we need to attack it in this year's budget. So it's $76 million. I can't hang my hat on one big project. It's North Cargo Berth 3 at $48 million that's going to generate new revenue. No, it's very broad, supporting all segments of our business. You can touch every item that you go out there and look at. We're investing dollars in there to continue to generate the existing revenue. So we had a lean couple of years, but now we're coming back. So Parks and Recreation, almost $10 million. We have to do paving out there. New camp store, pavilion upgrades, RV upgrades. Ketchum Park looking to do approximately $2.5 million of ramp improvements there. It's a 40-year-old ramp park out there, ramp system that needs upgrading. On the cargo side of the house, that's our largest share, $34 million. Berth improvements and road improvements. That's North Cargo Berth 3, that's South Cargo Pier 1 and 2. It's road improvements on the north side, such as Payne Way and Magellan Road. Real estate, very important segment of our business. We got to make sure our tenants have working air conditioners and dry facilities, and their roofs need to be in good working order. How are we paying for it? That $76 million will be funded by $53 million of our funding and $23 million in grants. State and federal, you add that together, that's $23 million, $53 million in our funds. We have 4 projects that will go over a 2-year time period, like dredging, like the canopy replacement, roads, that'll start in 23, it'll finish in 24. So from a pure cash outflow, the $53 million, we'll have to spend $44 million of our funds this year, and then $9 million in the subsequent year. On our tariff modifications, and our budget incorporates, these rates. So every year we come to the board if we want to modify our tariff, and we have been doing that. We put in, for example, this year, a 3% overall increase in all our fees. That's wharfage, that's stockage, that's line handling, so across the board. And then modifications to the rules that we show here. A lot of this is, I'll call it minor edits, some wordsmithing here to make it more clear. So there's some clarifications there. As always, we discuss this with our tenants. We advertise in advance. They're allowed to comment on it. They can come to these meetings, and the final approval on this will happen in September as well. Last item, the foreign trade zone. So we have 4 existing operators. We're adding Melbourne. They used to be one of the operators, and then that ceased. They're coming back on board. This ties into the TUI business, which the TUI airlines that'll be coming in from United Kingdom that'll be using the Marella cruise ships here. So it's with the fuel there, it allows them to stay within a duty-free zone the whole time from our port to down to Melbourne. Mr. Chairman, that's my budget. That's the 4 items. At this point, we're not asking for your approval. We'll ask for it at the September meeting, but there's any questions, we're here for you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mike, thanks. I wanted to make a point. I just want to actually thank you and your staff, Pat, Diana, Debbie, whoever else you want to call out. But great job, detailed brief, a huge increase in revenues. And what are we going to do with them? And at the strategic level, great decisions. John, good direction, but the bigger buying down this and saving that and all. I'm not going to be specific here, but I just thought that it was a really good job, and you guys should be recognized. It's not easy. It's really hard when we don't have money, but it's just as hard when we have a lot of money, and I appreciate that, and I think we're on the right path.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah, and bottom line, as we briefed you on your individual meetings, what are we doing with this additional revenues? We're reinvesting it in this infrastructure. It's that $76 million across the spectrum of the projects that we're going to be doing next year. That's where the revenues are flowing into. Yes, ma'am.
I had a few comments, and I'd like to echo, well done, and this is really exciting. We see these big numbers on revenues, but I'd really like to highlight for the public that we are working to aggressively pay down debt. It may be the biggest pay down we've had in ever. So I appreciate that, and the fiscal conservative management we've had that got us through COVID, and now doing the right thing and paying off those bills. Secondly, I look back through all the previous budgets. I think this is the biggest investment we've ever had in cargo as far as capital outlays, and how excited we are to work together with the other Florida ports and our statewide initiative to deal with supply chain issues. And we'll never be Jack's Port because we don't have the real estate, but to do everything we can both to diversify and also be a part of that supply chain need in our community. So those are 2 exciting things to me. Next, I wanted to highlight, I think it was on one of the last slides, the parking fees, because we've had some public comment on that, and then I've gotten an earful from a few people. So encourage people to go look at those parking fees. They are going up a little bit just because we're going to quit eating some of the cost. Am I saying that right?
Yes, Commissioner Hadaway, yes, we will not be absorbing the sales tax. So you'll be paying, when you're paying a fee on that daily rate, it'll be that fee plus the sales tax.
So that's great. And then last, I think the partnership with the Melbourne Airport is super exciting. And in future years, you know, we have a commission liaison to the Orlando Airport. I would really encourage building that relationship as it complements our cruise industry, and encourage maybe a liaison appointment to the Melbourne Airport next year.
Absolutely. And Commissioner Hadaway, one of the items that I'd pick up on or echo is when you're talking about the importance of the cargo-related capital projects that we're doing. Yeah, North Cargo Berth 3, $48 million project. And it's not just our port and you as our commissioners that see the importance of that project. You know, so does that Florida Department of Transportation, so does the federal government. It was an easy sell to me, to them, that showed why that project was so important because of our strategic location, the amount of materials that we bring in that supports not only our area, but the greater Orlando area. It's the cheapest form of transportation because we're the closest port to that supporting area. So yeah, the project sells itself. It's $48 million. You know, predominantly all funded by the federal and the state government. And next on its heels will be North Cargo Berth 4, the sister project that Bill always highlights. And we're making that pitch to the federal and state government as well. And the state has already started reserving money for that project. They have $12.1 million already reserved there. So yeah, it's not just us that see the importance. Our federal and state partners see it as well.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
And just to add to what Mike just said, we did apply for a federal grant for that, North Cargo 4 as well, a significant grant. We'll hopefully hear something about that in the next few months.
Exciting.
I had one more comment, Mr. Chairman. Of course. The boat ramp that Bill and I have kind of been talking about that's on the west end of the port, that is in this budget, correct? So I think it's important too that I'm part of these fishing pages and all the fishing community understand that we are going to upgrade that boat ramp. Right now, you can't put a boat in there that's over 20 feet long because there's a turn, and so it really limits the access on that end of the port. So that could even ease some of the fishing during snapper season or something like that. So we're upgrading recreational fishermen's access to Port Canaveral and to the ocean. And the reason we're able to do that is because we are fostering cruise and cargo. So it's important that they understand, the fishing community understands that we are remembering the little guy and we're taking care of the little guy. So.
Yeah, yes, Commissioner Lloyd, it is in the budget. The funds are programmed there, and you stated that very accurately. So we don't charge for usage of our boat ramps, but because of the revenues and the net revenues that we receive from cruise and cargo, it allows us to put the money in projects like the one you just described at Ketchum Park.
Yes, Commissioner Lloyd, I appreciate you making that, underscoring that point. That's an excellent point, because the recreational folks want to make sure that they're looked out for.
That's it, unless there's any other questions. Mr. Chairman, we'll roll over into my monthly report on financials. Is that okay?
Perfect.
So with it being an early board meeting, August 17th, we don't have a full closeout of our July numbers yet. We have June in there, revenues, expenses, the balance sheet. So we'll present the July numbers at the July and August numbers will be presented at the September board meeting. So full June numbers are in here, but we do have a snapshot of what July revenues look at, and some of the statistics, the passengers throughput that John was talking about. So the predominant portion of my report will be on June here. So what are we 9 months into our year? We budgeted $89 million. We're $6 million above budget. We budgeted expenses at $71 million. We're $1.6 million below budget. That's the way you want your variances to go, right? You want to be above budget on the revenue side. You want to be below on the expense side. So how did we look there? So we budgeted 8.5 million. We came in at 11 million, so we're 2.5 million over. You see all the segments of business, including Commissioner Hadaway, the cruise passenger numbers, right? That on a month-by-month basis, now we're starting to exceed that 75% forecast and that we had there. So 1.1 million in parking. You see cargo, lease. All the segments of business are above here. And now on a year-to-date basis, we budgeted 81 million, we're at 89, so we're 8.5 million over. All segments are above except for cruise. You're going to see that's going to flip month to month there, that 1.1 million negative turns. How did July become? It was 9.8 million, and we came in with 14 million, 4.3 million. Those are those numbers there. Look at cruise, 2.1 million above budget. So we're budgeting at 75%. We're coming in at over 100% occupancy, double occupancy on our cruise ships now. And so we like these trend lines, and I will go back to the budget presentation. I didn't really say the budget assumptions on that cruise numbers that we showed there of 124 million. I gave you the number of ships, the home ported ships, and it's an increase year over year of 112 ships, but what's the forecast? So in the current year, we budgeted 50% the first 3 months, 75% the last 9 months, and currently we're trending at over 100%, and that's reflected in those July numbers there. And so what did we do next year? So we're budgeting at 100%. Maybe that's being conservative, but that's what those numbers reflect. So 100% of double occupancy for the whole 810 home ported ships is what we're forecasting. And why I mentioned Commissioner Hadaway's name at our briefing, she mentioned that, I think that's the first time that on a month-to-month basis, cruise, the revenue variance actually exceeded the parking variance, and that is correct. Very strong month in July, and we'll be going over that. So at the end of the year, we budgeted 91 million. We're at $13 million above, and now that negative number that we have had all year has flipped positive, and we're exceeding on our cruise revenue numbers, the port fees that we charge. Now we're actually positive, over $1 million. We've been above in parking the whole year. First month that we exceeded it on cruise fees. So cruise by itself, 68 million. We budgeted 62. It's 5.9 million above. That's 2.7 million passengers. John reported 3.2 million through July through June. It's 2.7 million passengers. And you look there, in July, 500,000 passengers. So I think that's our largest revenue month ever in 14 million, and our highest number of passengers that we've ever pushed through this port at 500,000 passengers in the month of July. Now on cargo, 13 million, we budgeted 11, we're $2 million above budgets, 4.8 million tons. That's 800,000 above, or 20% above prior year. It's fuel and it's lumber. It's the same two components that I've been reporting previously. The remaining 3 segments of business, leases, jetty park, our miscellaneous, which is commercial vehicles, are either at or above budget. So what does that mean? That 8.5 million represents a 10% increase over budget. And expenses here, our departments were 1.6 million, or 2% under. You'll see like 6 departments that are above budget, ahead of budget. We will do budget transfers at the beginning of October, and we'll come back and brief the board at the October board meeting on what those budget transfers were, as long as we don't exceed the total amount, and we will not. That was authorized in our budget. And now, how do we wrap it up here? Operating revenues are almost 90 million. Operating expenses of 71 million produces operating income of 18 million. When you include the non-operating revenues, predominantly those ARPA monies of 30 million, and you take out the non-operating expenses, the interest on our debt, that produces a positive income before capital contributions 9 months through our year of $39 million. Any questions?
All great news.
All good.
One question. I don't have, and I don't know if an aging report. I was about to make a motion, but I'm missing something. Is there any cause for concern?
There's no cause for concern, Commissioner Hadaway, yet we didn't put it on the agenda. I do have it right now. We had a delay in getting that report out. We've had a turnover in staff. I received the report late last night. I really didn't get to look at it completely and go over it with John. So at this point, I have it over there, but I'd rather review it more, and if it's okay, we'll report back on the
Okay.
aging at the next board meeting.
Thank
Yes.
you. Then I'll move to accept the financial memo for June 2022, the statistical report, the list of bills, the list of disposals, the legal bills, and commissioner minor expenses for June 22.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Consent agenda.
No.
No? Oh, Bill. Speak.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
It's my pleasure to give you an update on capital projects that we have underway. Project that you're very familiar with is the additional parking at Cruise Terminal number 6. This was Captain Murray's idea to convert some unused space under that garage into paid parking, and that project was done fairly quickly. And lo and behold, we have cars parking, and so that space is now generating revenue for us on the parking side.
Okay, thank you.
I have a video on North Cargo Berth 3 update. You're becoming more and more familiar with this project with each update. This will be the future eastern end of the project with monopile mooring dolphins and a connecting catwalk. The A-frame cap that we've been talking about is now complete. That runs the full 880-foot length of the berth. We're about 50%, greater than 50% there on driving of concrete piles for the relieving platform. Those are from Gate Precast. We started on the combi wall. That's king piles, 15 of them driven. That's about 150 linear feet. And when I talk about king piles, this is the section width. You have twin king piles represented by the circles connected by interim steel sheet piles. The king piles go down about 110 feet. That is a temporary sheet pile wall that's in place to protect the warehouse. So as Rush Marine backfills, that wall will be extracted. This area used to be completely submerged. It's about 1/3 of an acre, which is a substantial augmentation to the cargo operating area for North Cargo Berth 3. It'll be fully paved. This is the western project limit. That's a submerged toe wall that will be ultimately installed and allow us to dredge deeper on North Cargo Berth 3. And as Mike mentioned, we are moving forward with the design of the sister project, North Cargo Berth 4. Bit of an update on Exploration Tower. As you recall, earlier this year, we finalized that settlement, and our contractor is waiting on small batch concrete. And so we need to cast some mud mats at the base of the tower in order for them to start erecting scaffolding. So this area right here is where they would begin erecting that scaffold. We had really hoped that they would be underway by now, but as probably Commissioner Lloyd can comment, small batches of concrete are very difficult to get these days. So it's currently scheduled for, it says late July, it should be late August, about the time that the Artemis launch is taking place. And because the Cape is shut down, that is probably the key for us to be able to get concrete that day, because construction is going to be shut down up at the Space Center. So the completion date is set for February of next year, 2023, and that date is softened right now by the beginning of the erection of that scaffolding system. Going to go around the port. I've updated the format to this slide. This does not include the number of projects that we've been able to add back into the FY23 budget as a part of that recapitalization and reinvestment of port revenues. I'm going to start with cruise projects, the Terminal 6 garage, canopy replacement at Terminal 10, gangway work at Terminal 1. On the cargo side, North 3, we watched the video. North 4 is under design. Got some fender replacement in North 5, and then South Cargo Pier 1 and 2, and Cruise Terminal 2. We're going to be coming back to you at the September Commission meeting to award that project. It's currently on the street. A cargo project that I don't have highlighted here is the purchase of the mobile harbor crane. It is on the agenda today. So if you choose to approve, that's about a 12 to 14 month manufacturing window. We'll have a series of 3 site visits to the facility in Rostock, Germany. The kickoff meeting is going to be scheduled for September next month. We'll have a mid-manufacturing site visit inspection trip that will be probably April. And then the third and final pre-delivery, final inspection, final testing, that would be scheduled in August of next year. So we're really excited about bringing that crane to the port. So we have a couple of general projects, the O&M dredging, and I do have a sampling effort on the agenda today for Animar, one of our continuing contract consultants. The updated port aerials, we have had some beautiful summer weather and some great opportunities to capture multiple vessels at berth. However, we have not had a cloudless sky. So every beautiful sunny summer day we've had, there have been clouds floating across the port property, and that has limited our ability to capture an updated aerial, but we continue to schedule that. Last but not least, our recreation project, starting with the pavilion, the new Jetty Park Camp Store, repairs to Exploration Tower, and then as Commissioner Lloyd mentioned, Rodney Ketchum Park is also a part of our plan. And we will be, and we currently are, investigating opportunities to straighten out Rodney Ketchum boat ramp, and that is the boat ramp that's located down by the lock system. That is my brief. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Quickly, Bill, sort of an overview of the uses for the mobile harbor crane. It's an exciting addition.
It really is.
Help the audience understand the significance of that.
For sure, for sure. Thank you for that question. Currently, it is situated at our North Cargo Berth 8 facility. It's being used by one of our tenants. That crane has been used a lot for the offloading of spent recovered boosters, so it gets substantial use, and you'll see a booster hanging on the hook for several days at a time while they process that recovered booster. But it has the ability to transit from our North Cargo Berth 5 facility into North 6 as needed, but that's where we have the two gantry ship-to-shore cranes. It can transit to North Cargo Berth 8, and we're designing North 3 and 4 to be able to accommodate transit of that crane and the sister crane if you choose to approve that purchase today.
Thank you.
And really, Bill, while you're up here, as we complete projects on the cargo side of things, I mean, the old cranes that we have need to be removed. I don't know if that's public knowledge yet, but I think only one of those is working. So as far as our cargo operation, when we do have a SpaceX that comes in and hangs a rocket for 2 or 3 days, we really don't have a great option for moving things up and down the cargo berth. So I would even say if you can get another grant for another crane, I think it'd be a great idea to add that maybe to next year's capital budget, because it sounds like to me maintaining those other old cranes is just a bad idea long term. So any other?
Excellent point. Those cranes that we did purchase from Georgia Ports Authority are obsolete cranes, and I think the original date of manufacture was like 1974. So the mobile harbor crane is a great story. It's very versatile. It can pick break bulk, obviously spent boosters, other project cargo. FPL has used it for some very large components, and so it gets a lot of use. And on the agenda item, the purchase of this next mobile harbor crane does include the heightened boom for picking of that SpaceX booster. So it was like a $42,000 add to the crane to increase the height of the mast rather by 12 meters, and the cable reel is oversized so they can take 2 layers of wire rope. I know I'm getting into the details, so we can get that hook height over top of the spent booster. So it'll be Falcon 9 booster capable, and included in that procurement package, to Captain Murray's direction, we included the option, we requested the option to procure yet a second, which would be our third mobile harbor crane. And Mike Poole did include that in FY24 budget for about $7 million, I think is that budget number. So yes, we have this current crane on the agenda, and we acknowledge that we have a firm fixed price on a second crane option, and that is programmed in FY24 budget.
And we're using these cranes for other cargo, standard cargo as well, correct? Like
Correct.
just containers.
If I could address that, yes, we do use it for multiple users. But the average, when we had it last year, maybe like 7, 8 days a month, and this month is going to be actually used 22 days in the month of this month. By the time the month is over, last month was 17 days, 18, 16. So it's getting a lot of use right now.
To make that point, though, okay, it's getting more use, good, we're getting another one, good, it still comes down to how many times it gets used, and if it's not getting used, it's a lot of money sitting there. There's that side to it, but.
And the return on investment. So the payback on this crane, which the current one that's operating was at least 50% funded, roughly 50% funded by grant funding. It's paying itself off in a matter of years. So 5 to 7 years is our current projected payoff. So very good return on that investment.
And Kevin, if you haven't gone over to see the crane, it's a very complex piece of machinery. The fact that you can move around something that's that large is really amazing.
I was not aware, candidly, that the extent of the range of the mobility. It's impressive.
Maybe we could have a video of the crane next month.
Absolutely, yes.
We have them.
Yeah, very versatile crane. And Captain Murray frequently raises the point that the current gantry cranes are supported on crane rails, which is another very expensive piece of infrastructure that we would have to install to further accommodate movement of those gantry cranes. And the mobile harbor crane fits our portfolio from a cargo perspective, but also, to your point, from a mobility standpoint as well. Thank you.
Well done, Bill. So I understand there's no public comment on the consent agenda. So Commissioner Lloyd, is there anything that you would like to pull for discussion?
No, sir.
Commissioner Hadaway?
3B.
3B is in boy, okay. Commissioner Justice?
I was going to say 3B and also 3A.
Okay. So may I have a motion to approve 1A, 2A, 2B, 2C, 3, 2D, 2E, 2F, 4A, and 4B?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Hadaway.
This was a,
Hold on, actually. you
I'm
did
sorry,
put
I'm sorry.
3A up. 3A is actually headed.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Commissioner.
3A, whoever wants to speak to it, I would just like to call the public's attention to talk about the aquarium for a little bit and speak to what's changed, specifically what we're voting on here. Craig, is that you? I don't know who wants to do this. Thank you.
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners, Chairman. Slight modification to a couple of the deadlines that were included on Exhibit H to the original development agreement. So what you have before you is a pretty short amendment to the development agreement, which really it replaces Exhibit H to the agreement, which includes the master timeline for several development obligations. Important to note that the overall timeframe for development and opening have not changed at all. It was just a couple of the early development milestones that are being updated in some respects to reflect actual dates where things occurred, and in other aspects to provide some additional time. You'll see on the exhibit the fourth milestone was for delivery of the legal description of the property, which is the future lease parcel. That has been moved out to September 1 of this year. Basically, as they have been, evaluating the property and looking at it, there has been some investigation of adjusting the FDOT right-of-way, which sort of led to, a desire to do that to give them the ability to move the project a little further north. But as they looked into it, the timeframes just aren't working out. So they expect to be done with that legal description for the parcel by the 1st of September, which then pushes out the next milestone just slightly for the site plan submittal, which will now occur on September 19th. It was originally supposed to happen around the April timeframe. It was extended until July and a little further couple of months extension. But beyond that, all the other milestones remain exactly the same as originally contemplated. And if there are any questions, Mr. Brannigan from the Zoo Aquarium is here as well.
So Craig, if I recall correctly, I guess there was some uncertainty about the boundary, so that does accepting more or less the boundary as is mean there's some design change?
Yeah, the boundary was what was certain, right, with FDOT, where the lines is. But the initial conceptual plans for the site really had sort of a graduated curve on the north side rather than fitting to the exact, angle of the FDOT right of way. And the desire was to try to maximize, that space. But I believe they'll still pursue that option to try to get that right of way modified. It's just probably going to take a while. So while that occurs, I think we just need to have a path that allows them to move forward, albeit just adjusted some of those early timeframes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. With that, I will move for the approval of consent agenda item 3 alpha.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, now Commissioner Hadaway, 3B.
Thank you. This was a late addition to the agenda, and I'll admit this is not my strong suit, so I want to make sure I understand it. John, do I direct my questions to you? I don't know if Amanda's.
No, you can go to Amanda. Amanda's
There she
closest
is.
to this
I was
issue.
looking for you earlier. Where did she come from? As I understand it, we're taking out the variance in the hourly rates at the request of the employees or at the request of the union,
Yes,
but not the other benefits. There's still seniority-based benefits as
Yes.
far as PTO, and that's at their design. And then I also want to confirm, it looks like there are 3 employees who are going to receive a reduction in pay.
no. We have always had it that if you give a COLA increase of 3% or something like that, the general employees would get a 3%, but if you're outside of the range, you would get a lump sum, which is rather than getting it on your pay. That is so that the people who are so highly paid compared to the others don't just keep going further and further away from what people are generally making.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I think that was all my questions. The way it was worded, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
And make sure everybody was going to be happy and that these were changes that they initiated as far as the structure.
Yes, definitely. They brought it up to us in negotiations. Originally before we had a minimum pay and a maximum pay, but they preferred to have a standard pay for everybody in a certain position. It's something, in fact, even in one of the second meetings, we were still talking about the way it was structured before, and I questioned, how important is this to you? And they said, this is very important. This is what we want as a structure.
And does that pay structure extend to the non-union employees?
No, it's very
Okay.
separate.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, just to make that point again, John, you said it a little differently, but, so this new structure the idea is to get everybody in a band, right?
It's by position or rating.
Right.
And I'll just say, as an example, a crane tech before might have had a range from here to here, basis experience, whatever. Now it's just one number for that particular position. So every position's got a number assigned to it.
Okay.
Is that correct?
This is very typical in a lot of union contracts, particularly in the northern, Midwest states.
Okay. It's been approved by them, so we're good. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll move to approve item 3B.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are at public comment, and Lester Bullock, the CEO of Victory Casino, is going to share some thoughts with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Good morning. Thank you for approving my minor adjustment. I just want to let you know we still have our 300 Brevard County employees. They're still employed all through COVID, up and down. And I'm very proud to tell you that for the second year in a row, we've just been awarded the Traveler's Choice Award by TripAdvisor. And it's only given to about the top 10% of attractions worldwide. So I think that's a pretty good addition to Port Canaveral. We're thrilled to still be a strong member here, and I love the numbers. It's really great, John. You guys doing a great job, your whole staff. So thank you very much. I love being here, and my employees love being here. But being awarded this 2 years in a row is pretty impressive, so I'm kind of proud of our staff. So I just want to let you guys know that. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes, thank you.
It's actually my understanding that Jerry's on the casino boat right now. Nobody's not here.
Okay, thank you for that. Next is Mac McLeod.
Good morning, folks. I want to talk to you about the proposed North Atlantic right whale seasonal speed zone, which I oppose extension down to this area. I would add that I have served for 30 years as a volunteer. I was on the 4th floor of a condo in Cocoa Beach. There's this volunteer group that they have all up and down Brevard County. They spend thousands of hours of scanning the ocean out there looking for right whales. And when a right whale comes into Brevard County, I can tell you, everybody's all excited. And you appear in the newspapers, it's on the TV, people are all excited. I can't believe that a right whale has slipped by in the last 40 years that we didn't know. It's insane that they would extend it this far down. We only get if we get more than 2 or 3 right whales that come down here, why, it's really an unusual situation. So I would be happy, more than happy, to appear at any meeting they got and describe this service that we have here to notify everybody about a right whale. There's pictures in the paper and on TV all over the place. It's just flat insane that we would require that kind of thing. So I'm volunteering. I don't know when this thing is, when they're going to have it, but I'll be more than happy to come and talk to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Ben, real quick, could you elaborate a little bit perhaps on the extent of your interaction with, as on behalf of the harbor pilots with NOAA?
Yeah, this was brought to our attention just about 2 weeks ago, and it was a total surprise that they would expand the right whale zone as much as they did. We were not expecting Canaveral to be included. We were really caught off guard by that.
That's a short window then.
And the short window, the comment period is September 30th, as was in John's slide. So I would encourage everybody, all the fishermen, recreational fishermen, commercials, guys. I'm talking to harbor pilots from here until Maine. I'm getting people involved at the federal level the best that I can. This is a federal issue, but we're trying to use the strength we have in Tallahassee to get the state folks to talk to the federal folks. This is a big deal and could have really some dramatic negative impacts on our operation here. Total federal overreach.
I think, and it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for us to put some type of notification out there, even to the fishing community. You know, you can't go 10 miles an hour and catch tuna 100 miles offshore. That'd take you 3 days to get there and back, you know, so it's a little scary to see how the federal government's overreach can really affect normal citizens.
Well, I mean, there has to be two sides of this coin. There's only X number of right whales. They know, like you were saying, that how, you know, roughly how many they are and where they're at. Then there's surveillance opportunities. How many of them are already chipped and all, you didn't know that. And what's the real threat? Gets back to what's the real threat that would drive NOAA to bring it all the way down here? I mean, if it's minuscule, it's minuscule, and that needs to be said. And,
Yeah, so
and
the
work
current
it.
right whale zone is like 18,000 square miles, and they want to double that. They want to double the size of the right whale zone. And as John pointed out, moving from 65 feet to 35 feet, which is just mind-boggling, the amount of new additional recreational boaters that are
Impact.
going to be subject to this.
Right.
And if you're caught in violation of the speed zone, you're breaking the law and the Endangered Species Act, and the captain of the ship, the owner of the recreational boat, the pilot on the ship can be held criminally liable and go to jail for exceeding a 10-knot speed limit. That's where this could go. They could have cops out there monitoring these guys in the 36-foot boats going too fast. So, as I've been working with Bob and Diane, we are taking this very seriously. We love whales too, but this is just untenable to the point of being navigationally unsafe.
I thank you both for that additional insight and information, and I'm glad that you're working with staff.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Have we already published, I saw that, you know, public comments open. Where can individuals go to comment and,
We'll get it up on our website.
okay.
There's some copies up front that show the change in the proposed areas.
Diane, excuse me, can you come to the microphone?
I'm sorry. My bad.
It's better than that, too.
We'll get it up on our website, but right up front, there is copies, as Captain Murray had referenced, to the change in the areas and the extension of time. So there's copies up front. I encourage anybody to grab one of those, but we'll get it up on our website.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioner reports. Commissioner Justice?
Yes, thanks. Just a few things. Had a wonderful time with the sheriffs and on the and all the veterans on the July 4th parade representing Port Arthur. It was a nice parade, great to do a real parade again. Diane and I went up to Jacksonville and welcomed the new captain of the port up in Jacksonville. She's going to be a good friend as well, and we're moving forward with that one. Thank the staff. I think it's, who was with me? I think Bill, Clyde, Corey. We did the JMAS, the Joint Military Attaché School program again that we do in here, and that's well received. That's a good show. I joined a couple of you other guys here up at the NVHS dinner on last Friday night. You could have called it a sauna, I think, instead of a dinner. Those of you who were there, it was really, right, Bob? It was just, anyhow. But that's the National Veterans Homeless Society annual fundraiser, and they raise a couple $100,000 that night for the homeless vets. That's a great show. And then just yesterday, I don't know, underscore this, the captain of NOTU. I got an update from him on what all's going on up there. And I just want to, mention again that, our port partner there, that's a huge operation. They've got 75 active duty, and they got thousands of contractors working up there. And it's sea-based strategic deterrence 2084. Okay, that's their vision. That's when they're going to get done, what they're going to get done with the new Columbia-class submarines and the new version of the intercontinental ballistic missiles that are fired. Those guys represent, 70% of our nation's strategic deterrence. And it's all right here in our home port, in our port here in our community. And just another example of the importance of what's going on around here. And just looking ahead, 9/11's coming up. There's activities all over this county to commemorate it, and that's one of the special ones for me. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Commissioner Hadaway.
I'd like to thank Rush Marine and Spectrum 13 News for doing a feature on one of our junior port ambassadors and the program. We have a bunch of applications in, and Commissioner Lloyd and I will be, Melanie will help us release those names either late this week or early next week. Also wanted to thank Commissioner Lloyd and Rush Marine for the 4th of July fireworks that they coordinated on the barge. It was fantastic. Was excited to take my family out there and know everyone enjoyed it. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Lloyd.
I really have no report, but there's a gentleman that keeps emailing, I think, all of us about drones. And his emails have been getting more and more aggressive as far as insulting our integrity and things like that. So, staff, could you give us a quick overview of drones and how they can be used here at the port and what we're doing to make sure that our cruise passengers are safe?
We can do that. In fact, Peter, would you mind just giving the overview, and I'll add in anything that needs to be added.
Commissioners, good morning again. Our drone policy is folks can fly over Port Canaveral with drones. However, they cannot launch or recover from port property. That's against our tariff and our regulations. We do have surveillance coming from Kennedy Space Center. We use their drone detection system, so we'll notify somebody launches from Port Canaveral, we'll know where they are. We'll track their drone. We'll send BCSO over there to inquire who's flying. We'll tell them you can't fly here. We'll give them a warning. You get one warning, and then the second time we'll trespass you from the port. And that's our rules and regulations. And the being is that the weaponization of drones, you can just see across the globe. They're used them for, explosives, grenades. And our worst fear is, you have a LNG barge alongside Disney Wish, drone flies over, drops something on there, and we have a catastrophe. And how do we determine who's a good pilot and who's a bad actor? So that in a nutshell is our policy.
This port is full of critical infrastructure, from fuel tanks, fuel farm, pipelines, above ground fuel lines, large scale ships where you have 13,000 people moving on and off a ship in a single day. It's just something that is common sense, that you don't just allow anyone to fly randomly through the port with the critical infrastructure. So I know you're getting the emails. I think you'll agree that we don't want people randomly flying through here.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify publicly that I take my job very seriously, keeping the port passengers safe and keeping this port operational. And so if this gentleman would like to take it up with our attorney, would like to take it up at the state level, the federal level, go over to the Navy base and see if they'll let you fly a drone around.
They won't.
Take it up with somebody else, but it's very important, I think, to all of these commissioners up here that we keep people safe here, and that's our first priority. So, yes, sir.
And the state law is not as clear as it could be. So we can't control the airspace. That is the FAA. The only thing that we can control is launching and recovery from our property. And if somebody launches from Cape Canaveral, it's out of our control. But what we can control, we try to do so.
Well, and I'd like to add, on that same note, we've got 3 members of this board right now who are members of the Florida Bar in good standing, and I think all of us are comfortable that we're in compliance with the statute and the critical infrastructure portion of it, and the implications that we are not upholding Florida law is soundly rejected.
Agreed.
Can I give a rebuttal? I'm the guy writing email. Can I have 3 minutes to rebut?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I don't think the gentleman has filled out a card, and I think that we've said our piece.
I agree. I was going to talk to you after the meeting and simply suggest, as I think is consistent with the theme of the comments you've just heard. If you feel strongly about how the law is to be interpreted, that's for someone in robes in a court of law to tell us. You're entitled to your opinion, and it's just that, isn't it, your opinion? Thank you, Peter. And thank you for raising that issue, Commissioner Roy. I have no comments, so that being said, meeting is adjourned.
I got it.
So I didn't keep going.
I don't think he wants to be, but he's
He's here every time. He's here every time. You know, I just send me pictures. Every goes out there every Sunday or whatever, takes pictures.